Rodd Duff, your host.
And I'm producer Barbie.
And together,
we bring you our podcast,
Insights and Straight Talk. And with that, producer Barbie and I are out. You know, I should put that last part of that clip on the backside on the outro video, because okay, you know what? That's us driving into the studio. How's that? All right, welcome back to Insights and Straight Talk. I had to get that off my mind. I've been looking at it for a while. I'm Rodd Duff. Producer Barbie is here with me, and whether you're with us live or watching on the replay, thank you for spending part of your day with us. Now, if you've been around for a while, this show, for any length of time, you already know this. We talk a lot about AI here, but not in the way most people are talking about it, right? We're not here for the shiny tools, hot takes, or fear-driven countdown clocks. We're here because AI is already showing up in real workplaces, real communities, and real lives. And most people are being asked to adapt without much clarity or support. What I hear over and over again from leaders in this field, AI isn't the confusing part. Nope. What's confusing is how fast it's being pushed without conversations about leadership, discipline, or responsibility. Talking a lot about that lately. And that's where this show lives. Before we go any further, though, I want to recognize the partners who make these deeper conversations possible. Mangum City Library and the Leaf Labs. Both of them believe that access to knowledge, thoughtful learning, and human-centered use of technology matter, especially as AI becomes part of everyday decision-making. Their work also connects directly to the broader ecosystem we talk about here, including Voices at the Table and the Regeneration School Project, where we focus on preparing people, not just systems, for the future. Now, today's guest fits this conversation perfectly, because she doesn't approach AI from theory or hype. We're just having some amazing conversations in the back. She comes at it from pressure, accountability, and lived experience. Joining us today is Anca Platon Trifan. Anca is an award-winning entrepreneur, AI strategist, technical event producer, and host of events Demystified. She spent more than 2 decades working every technical role you can imagine: audio, lighting, video, show calling, technical direction, before ever being called a strategist. Which means she talks about systems, performance, and leadership under pressure. She's not guessing. She's been responsible. And that matters, especially in AI conversations, because AI doesn't fix broken leadership. It doesn't replace discipline, of course, and it doesn't magically create clarity where none exists. If anything, AI reveals what was already there. That's something we come back to often on this show. So today, we're going to talk about AI, but we're going to talk about leadership, resilience, and performance when the stakes are high. Not hustle culture, not grind for the sake of grinding, just subtle execution. And we're going to talk about energy and self-leadership too, because Anca is also a 5-time bodybuilding champion. And anyone who's trained at that level understands systems, recovery, and long-term discipline. This conversation is for the builders. It's for the operators. It's for the great middle class, the people trying to lead well without burning out their teams or themselves. So before we bring Anca in, make sure you're subscribed at Rodd Duff 1939 and stay connected with us here on Insights and Straight Talk. All right, let's get into it. Anca, did you leave for a second and then come back? I heard another boop there for a second.
You were doing so great that I was wondering, who are you talking about? Is it the same person?
Yes,
No,
I am.
no.
I am talking about you, Anca. Come on.
I know Chrome kicked me out for a second, so I had to find my way back in. But here we are. We are on track. Yeah, that was a great description, Rodd, there. I'm blushing a little bit. I'm like, wow, I can't believe that. That sounds so amazing. Like, who is this person?
It's all true, though, right? It's exactly line by line, exactly who this person is, right there in the mirror, right there looking at you. Right?
Sometimes you do have that, imposter syndrome where you're like, I know I've done a lot of things. I know I have been in many places and I have a lot of things to share. And you're still, kind of unsure that you deserve the attention or the stage. And I've actually had this week I was in Canada keynoting at this large industry event, and it was one of the largest stages I've been on. And as I'm looking at this magnificent stage with all these wonderful people, Canadian people that I haven't had the opportunity to speak in front of, like I had that moment of like, oh my gosh, like, am I really gonna do this? And as they're, doing the introduction, they have the voice of God introducing me and all that. I just decided, you know what, I'm going to step into my power and do what I do. And I'm going to own that. And that's what I did. And it's just, you have those split moments where you have to decide, and I'm going to like shiver and become small, or am I going to walk into it and be who I am? So that was kind of like one of those moments for me. So I had to own it, and I had to walk in, and it was a wonderful keynote. It was well received. And a lot of people came to me afterwards, very excited about the topic, because in so many words, it's funny, when you were doing this introduction, I'm like, I think he's talking about my keynote, because really that's a lot of the topics that I touched on. And that's probably the reason why, we wanted to have this conversation. A lot of people are out there when it comes to AI to sell more tools. And I think we had enough AI tools by now. What we don't have a lot of is systems and workflows, and looking at where does AI belong and where does it not. So I'm excited about this conversation, Rodd. Let's get it going.
Yeah, it's interesting that that finally the conversation is coming back around to, it's been flying out so fast, and it's going to continue to move fast. It's affecting, like I said, it's in our factories. There's AI, there's OI, for inventory scheduling and automation in those fields as well. Let me ask you though, when you were at the when you had this keynote up in Canada, this was last week, you said, right, or earlier this week?
It was actually Tuesday.
You're just living on those frequent flyer miles, aren't you? Yeah. But in the crowd, in the audience, there were thousands there, right? In the audience, what's the age group of people showing up? Is it younger people? Is it people in their 40s? Is it people my age? Is there a mixture in there? What do you? Because you're talking about leadership and that crossover between AI and how that relationship is evolving, right?
Yeah, so a lot of my work actually is in the event industry. So I talk in front of event professionals, event leaders that lead agencies and companies within the world event industry at large, right? So that can be incentives, that could be trade shows, that could be corporate events, that could be conferences, the whole MICE. We call it the MICE industry, which is meetings and events and incentives. And that's a $1 trillion industry, and a lot of the systems that we're trying to slam AI on, they're very manual. There's a lot of manual systems that still exist, lots of spreadsheets, lots of siloed platforms that don't always communicate with each other. So that's kind of the premise of where I'm walking in when I'm working with these leaders, and we're trying to make sense of where does AI fit in the picture. As far as demographic and age group, most of the event professionals in those roles, I would say they're anywhere, like 40s, 50s. We're more like mid-age. We're mid-agers. There is a good intent to bring more younger generation into the industry, and that was one of the topic of my actually podcast. I also had a live taping of the podcast on the main stage, and we're talking about how do we coach and mentor the new generation as we are providing opportunities for them to come into this industry that's very taxing. It's taxing on your mental health, on your physical health. It's taxing on your schedule. I mean, you're constantly traveling, you're constantly going from place to place, from event to event, and the turnarounds, are short. The deadlines are very tight. The budgets get cut. So there's a lot of stress. Like, there was this metric that came out that event planning, event management is one of the most stressful jobs. Yes, we do not, we're not responsible for people dying, hopefully, like on a surgery table, right? You're not a surgeon, but you still are dealing with a lot of stress, a lot of stakeholders, a lot of parts that are moving constantly. So because of that, trying to implement AI in a way that is thoughtful and strategic is very important, because otherwise what you end up with is more work that you have to review now. Yes, AI will amplify your output, but if that output is not strategic, what you're going to end up with is now I have to be, doing more reviewing, more QCing, more steps that like I didn't have to do before. So that's the audience that I'm very familiar with and I work with, and that's the ICP, if you may, that I help.
Let's hold there for a second. Are you saying that right now you're having to increase your steps of what you're having to do during this time? Could you expand on what you were just saying there?
Which part?
You know what I'm referring to? Right there towards the end, before you went into the last part of that statement, you were talking about that you were going into the under today's conditions, you're having to do more work.
Yes. Yeah.
Did I hear that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just think about if you don't have a system in which you know specifically where AI fits in, what AI does is generate a lot of output. That could be content generation, that could be analysis, that could be anything and everything within the event ecosystem. There's multiple elements where AI helps. But now you're still the decision maker. You're still the human in the loop that needs to review the output. Hopefully you do review the output. You're not just going to put it out there. You have RFPs that need to be reviewed. You have stakeholders that have, sponsor prospectus you need to review. So while you can absolutely amplify the amount of work you can do with AI, now you also amplify the amount of reviewing you have to do because AI was in the picture. That's what I was saying.
Well, on top of that, you also have to train your AI, so to speak, right? So that
that would be step number one. Hopefully you did step number one. You didn't just jump.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, because as you're training that AI, it's like having an assistant, or an associate. You're looking at expectations and needs that you have, and training that allows that associate to be better at that job, because they go crazy sometimes and go down a rabbit hole at times, and there's those issues. But you talked in your opening also that a lot of these systems that are currently in your industry are in silos, meaning they're not across the rates, they're siloed, right? So they're in separate echo fields, right?
Yeah. Well, let me pick up on something.
There's that setup too, right?
Yeah,
Go
let me
ahead.
pick up on what you said about the AI system. Yes, a lot of people picture AI as being their assistant, someone who reads between the lines or fills in the gaps or adapts when things change or knows when to escalate because something feels off. But that's not what AI is. That's a seasoned human assistant that uses judgment, that can compensate for ambiguity, that can smooth over
Right.
unclear decisions because they have learned how that works. The mistake that we are making with AI is assuming that AI works the same way. Well, it doesn't. This is where the expectation tends to break because AI behaves much more like a little junior team member in the sense that it executes exactly what it's given. If you give it instructions that are not clear, then it carries them out. So if you have priorities that conflict, it won't resolve them. If you have something that changes somewhere midweek down upstream, it will create more work instead of adapting, right? So I would say that AI struggles in the
Yeah.
same
Okay.
part of the workflow that a junior talent struggles in, and that is those early ambiguous stages where decisions have not been made clearly or explicitly. So AI will perform excellently where there is clarity, but not before that. So one of the things that I was kind of trying to make the point as I was talking about this concept is the fact that if you wouldn't ask your junior team member to figure it out, don't ask AI either, because AI will
Good point.
perform excellently where clarity exists, but not before that. And the way I came to think about this is pretty simple. Think about intelligence. Intelligence does not care whether it's human or artificial. It will adapt to the role that it's given, right? So that's kind of what pulled me away from treating AI like a tool, because tools don't adapt. People adapt. So I'm even kind of careful when I think about using, the term junior, because that doesn't mean that AI doesn't have capability. It has a huge amount of capability. What it lacks is leadership, direction, judgment, boundaries. So in that sense, then you have AI that, if it doesn't have a clear structure and a clear system to work within, then it won't output what you're expecting to output. And that's where people get kind of like confused. Oh, I tried AI and didn't work for me. Well, because you didn't give it clear enough instruction. You didn't give it enough boundaries so it can operate at the level that it can.
Yeah, and you exactly. I mean, I'm trying to figure out how to say more to what you're talking about right now, but that's exactly the point, is that you can't expect out of this tool, or adaptive tool, actually, let's call it an adaptive tool, without giving it direction. The leadership still exists, right? I mean,
That's where
it's the
leadership
junior.
exists. That's
Go
where
ahead.
we
Go
need
ahead.
leadership, right? Like that's where, like, the roles, when you think about the roles that AI is given, and that's what we were talking about prompting a year or two ago, and one of the major the first tips that when you were learning prompting was give AI a role, like act as a whatever business analyst, act as a marketer, act as a whatever, right? And then give it the context and then ask it. That's what we're talking about. Like, you are the leader, me, the leader that you are, to direct this intelligence to do what it needs to do. But all of that is within the context of, if AI is to add real value, you have to step into that leadership role.
Yeah, that's I don't think people ever really frame AI in that context, because it is that context. I've started using it a couple of years ago with my older son. My oldest son is in his 40s. And he taught my granddaughter was born a couple of years ago. I was there at her right. And so my son said, "Hey, you ought to try this out," because I was asking him, how's he doing all that stuff?
Yeah.
And he started me out on a simple chat GPT. How would you suggest people, by the way, before I ask this question, would you read Lori's comment here?
Let's see.
It's on the stage
Lori.
there.
Thank you, Lori. Great show. Finally, a conversation that feels real and practical. Yes, that's all what we're about here.
So in exactly, and what we're talking about now is kind of reframing this in that you have to be a leader in order to frame how you want your AI to how you want this to happen. Two things. One, how would you recommend people who don't currently use AI, we'll say AI first, how would you recommend they step into this? Because it's filling everybody's life. It's entering everybody's life currently. Second, there are people that aren't used to leadership roles, let's say, and they're going to be using AI. Help me with this email, or something like that. How would you address those two separate things? We got a bunch of questions coming in. We got well over 200 people in. We got a bunch of questions coming in. But how would you frame what I was just asking before we dive into some of this other stuff?
Yeah, I mean, let's just start with the beginning. I think a lot of people are using AI as a glorified Google search, which is fine.
Yes.
If that's the level you want to use AI at, it's fine. Another thing that I see a lot of people are using it is just to create funny photos and caricatures of themselves and memes and all those things, right? Like, that's fine. Like, entertainment, fine. I'm totally fine. But I think where we need to step outside of that, like, level one, is to really think of AI, as I mentioned, like, of this advisor. Personally, I run 3 different businesses, and I actually have a board of directors that is all AI, made of AI, and we have a meeting every week for each one of my companies where we make decisions, and we make decisions in regards to the growth of the company, in regards to what the competition is doing, regarding like marketing strategy, all the things. I'm one person with one head, but I get perspective from this library of intelligence that exists and is available to me, which was not up until a few years back, that now I can draw insights from. I have those board of directors analyze my CRM and analyze my processes, my systems, my habits, and inform me in the decisions that I would have had to have, a group of people otherwise, or mentors of, to do those things. I can do that now with my AI board of directors. That is just one simple example of where you can take AI way beyond what you think it's possible. And I think the biggest thing, I was actually thinking about this, the people that are the most dangerous with AI are not the ones that can come up or use solutions or use AI as a solution, are the ones that can think of outside the norm use cases to use AI. Those are the people who are going to be the most dangerous, because those are the ones that are always thinking, okay, how can I use AI in this process? How can I use AI right now? There is nothing that I do that I don't first think, oh, maybe I should get some help from Gemini, or should get some help from Claude. I do a lot of vibe coding. Claude is in my system. And even like today, just another example. I actually had an event that I was bidding on last year that happened yesterday. Now, I was also traveling from Canada yesterday. So the event happened. I couldn't be there in person, but I didn't win that bid, right? I know that bid went to someone else, but I don't know who, because I wasn't able to be in person at the event, even though I was invited to go, even after I lost the bid. But anyway, so because I was in travel. So what I did this morning, I actually whipped up an agent to go and search everything on the internet, on social, about this event, who did what, so I can have a report of what happened, even though I wasn't there in person. This is one use case study of me being on top of what my competitors are doing, so I can take notes, so I know who won that bid and why did they win it and how did they do better, so I can improve next time. Simple example. I always think in system for my business, what helps my business. You might have a different case study or case use for AI, but always think outside of the box. How can I bring this intelligence that I have access to support what I'm doing, to support my growth, to support my career, trajectory? Those are the things that should, kind of flow through your head, in my opinion.
I heard somebody. I told you we talk a lot about AI on the show, and different subjects as well. We have different lanes, but somebody had mentioned something to me, and it was kind of surprising to me, and I think it will be surprising to you as well. Now they were talking specifically about writing more than setting up for systems and analysis, but the same thing affects. The same effect could be the same effect could occur, right? Technically. Wow, we got over 400 people here. They're just diving in like crazy. But the comment that was made is using something like AI writing. You tend to become less of a writer because you're not actually developing that skill. Your AI's doing that work for you. It's like muscle, right? You got to work out. Well, bodybuilding. You got to work out and stay with that. But to me, I've never felt that is the case. What you just described it's actually the opposite, because instead of spending a lot of time the old way, that we had to do research and find out and probably didn't get as much information. Now you're actually gaining more by loads, by multipliers of information and becoming more at that. Wouldn't you kind of address that comment the same way, or would you?
Well, I disagree with that a little bit, because you can make AI be what you want it to be. But let's just take the example of writing, right? I'm in the process of editing my book. My memoir is going to be coming out this year. I wrote it in the last 5 years. I just kept writing at it. And only in the last year is when I finally was able to complete the last few chapters, not because AI is there, but because I was able to utilize AI to finalize my thoughts. So here's where my problem was. I can write. I'm a better writer actually than I'm a speaker. And I can just put words on paper, like full on speed, like all of that. But to clarify the message, to trim out the fat and just make sure that message is clear enough and it lands, I could use the help of AI. Now, I'm, English as a second language immigrant that moved to US 20 something years ago. And sometimes I still think in Romanian. I still think in my second language. What AI has done for me from a, language, from a writing point of view, is to multiply my mental capacity that I just couldn't figure out how to verbalize it fast enough. So it helped me kind of get past that, barrier that I was struggling with in the beginning. So I can get my thoughts out so much faster. I can get them cleaned up. I can speak into, like, the way I communicate with AI when I have thoughts, and I have plenty of thoughts, especially in the morning. I chat. I basically chat with it, and I say, okay, here's what I'm thinking. Those are the things that I want to highlight. I want you to pull from this, whatever training that I did, and pull from this other keynote that I did, and pull from this other reference that I did, and a blog post, and put it all together, because this is what the reason, and this is what the key takeaways for this one, whatever, either LinkedIn post, those are the things that I would normally write, or article, or a blog post, or maybe another workshop that I'm working on. Those are the key takeaways that I want to draw from. So I'm like literally spitting a lot of things out there. And what AI does for me, because by now it really knows how I operate, how I communicate, what my voice is, it automatically cleans it up. And I have this final product that I don't have to labor over hours upon hours, which I used to do, right? So now coming back to my book, the only thing that I would say right now, I stay away from editing my book with AI, is because I still want to keep my voice. I don't want.
Wait. You don't edit. I pictured it You're
No,
using AI as an editor
I
to cut
I use
fat
it
and
for redundancy.
for
I use
research
it for
then.
redundancy. I use it for flow. I use it for making sure that like I am making sense within this chapter that connects with the next chapter. But I don't want like I can have Claude code go over my document and rewrite it like this under my eye if I gave it the power. But I don't want that. I want my
Yeah.
words to be still
Yeah.
my words. All I need is to make sure as I'm starting this chapter and we're at the end of it, I didn't repeat myself like again, like I didn't somehow use a similar example, or I didn't somehow like I don't know, like all those repetitions that you don't realize that you do when you talk or when you put things down. Those are the things that I need QCing. I need the analysis of that manuscript to make sure that it flows well, but I don't want it to be rewritten by AI. I want my words to be my words, even as they are, not necessarily flawless, but human. You know what I mean? So
Absolutely.
I think there's a distinction between how AI can be useful versus if you are not careful, you can definitely use AI and put out a bunch of slop. I see this on LinkedIn all the time. There's like so much content rewritten by AI, but I can tell where the human didn't do their job. Like they didn't QC it. They just put a bunch of stuff out there. And the more stuff that exists of that nature, the more we're going to want to hear the actual person talk and make the point, even if they're not perfect, even if it doesn't flow as perfect as AI, because we care about that human connection, about that human authenticity. And unfortunately, we are at that, kind of like point where we're getting overwhelmed with how much content and how much, YouTube is pushing a lot of AI generate content as well. Like how much of that exists, not even talking about social media. Like Facebook has become like this fostering ground of like AI photos that you can't tell anymore, like if it's real or not. You go on somebody's profile and all you like
I hate
one
that.
photo.
Yeah, I hate that. That's the thing about AI is, well, it's multiple things, but one of the things is it's hard to know what the truth is out there on anything, photos or words or whatever, clips and all that. Hey, Dixon, why don't you read Dixon's comment here?
Yeah, powerful reminder that AI exposes leadership, it doesn't replace it. Yeah. So I want to take us back a little bit to leadership and how AI can add real value. And in my opinion, there are 3 leadership shifts that have to happen first. The first shift, you have to remove yourself as the single point of failure, because value only appears once you have context, which is externalized beyond what you keep in your mind and shared, instead of just you being the person that knows how things work, but then nobody else does. So if something were to fall and something were to crash and burn, it's on you, right? And then what you do in that case, you just compensate with more effort and energy. You need to remove yourself as being the single point of failure. The second shift is claiming authority over what actually matters. That's where leadership decisions are important. Most teams, like especially I'm talking about event teams, they're operating with multiple definitions of what success looks like for an event. Think about you have an event and you have a lot of stakeholders that care about the outcome of that event. But then you also have different definitions of what does it look like. What does a successful event look like? You can have the cost, you can have the brand, you can have the sponsor, you can have the experience, you can have the attendee number of the attendees, the ROI. All of those metrics are valid, but not all of them can be true at the same time. So the moment an AI system is asking, okay, so which priority wins from all of that? If you are not careful, if you don't know which is the main priority, then you're going to end up with deferred trade-offs, which become unavoidable. So that just turns into things that you then have to deal afterwards. And then the third shift is redesigning how work actually flows. Where do decisions stall? Where does information drop? Where does coordination get absorbed instead of, owned? Where do the approval loops exist because authority was, not clarified? This is where leverage lives. AI leverage lives because it's not just in the tools, it's not just in the prompts, it's in how the decisions and the information moves along before the chaos hits. So that's where it's important when you think about your leadership teams. You have to have systems in place, and you have to trust your leaders to be leaders, not just executors, and to step into that leadership role and design that workflow so it doesn't constantly collapse onto the person when something doesn't work. Yes, you should always have the human in the loop, but you need a system first in order for that to work well.
So the out of the gate, you had said, and I want to. This came up right as you were talking, and I think this is a good fit into what we're talking about now. But in the beginning, you said you need to assign another person so that you're not the only crash point. Were you talking about setting up your team in that, and then at the end of that comments that you were making there, then that's how you're introducing. You got to set up that team, including having other people that are, in case you're not the only one that knows everything. You want somebody else. You're talking about a team member, a person,
I'm
right?
talking about running a business. If you're the only node that knows how that business runs, and you're not somehow replaceable in case of something happens, you don't have a business. You have a job.
Right.
So that's what I'm talking. If you are a leader, you should have systems in place. So anybody that steps in, if you are not able to, they know how things work. Same thing with AI. If you want AI to step in and support your workflow, support your business, there should be system. There should be what we call in technology development is a PRG document, a product recommendation document that explains exactly how things work. What is our goal? What is our mission? Who's responsible for what happens if that, this or that, right? I want to pick up on this question I see on the screen here. How can leaders start adopting AI without overwhelming their teams? So one of the good things that actually I do with a lot of the teams that I work with, and those are leadership teams that are in charge of many other teams under their responsibility, is actually take them through what I call them a workshop, a AI 101, 102, 103, their entire system, their workflow, and we operate within their structure. Because I think what happens is a lot of the leaders, they kind of put it onto the team to go and figure it out and get AI ready, but not everybody will get AI ready at the same time, at the same speed, nor will they have the same type of understanding. I was running a case study that actually had recently a talk on, where we ran this AI hackathon where we used AI in every part of the event cycle, and we wanted to break the event with AI to see where it fits and where it doesn't. And one thing that we've learned through that experience was that AI can move way faster than the shared understanding of AI moves. So what that means is you could have AI deploy a lot of things within that infrastructure, but there's a lot of people that don't understand how that works or why does that happen, because you didn't spend the time to train or to bring them up to speed of what's possible with AI, or where are the limitations, what are the risks, what are the failures, where are the even like privacy and security. That's a big one for many industries. And so is for a lot of the events that are happening in the healthcare space, in pharma. And you can't just throw, a tool in your system when your system is protected from everywhere else by a high security wall, right? So you're limited in a way of the tools that you can use, but at the same time, you have to provide your team with the right opportunity to teach. So within those teams, I get to come in and then we look at their tools, at their infrastructure. Are you a Microsoft SharePoint only, client? Are you working in Google Workspace? Are you everywhere? Like, what exactly are your requirements so we can create a plan that works for you? Because if you're only in under the Microsoft Enterprise account, you're not going to touch ChatGPT. You're not going to touch Gemini. You're going to have to work with Copilot. Like it or not, you're going to have to work with Copilot, right? And same thing if you're like, I know lots of people do, but if you give it the same time, think about it. If you spent 2 years training ChatGPT to be your best assistant ever, same thing could be true with Copilot. You just have to spend the time now to do so, right? So a lot of those, and then there's also the question of where does AI fit versus automation versus augmentation. You can do 3 different things with AI, and then agentic AI. That's a completely separate thing on top of all of that, right? So not everything has to be the same thing. There's multiple systems that can easily be fixed with a simple automation, with just some like if this, then that logic. And Power Automate in Microsoft, Microsoft Enterprise does that, or Zapier or Make or whatever. Like, you can build those type of functions. Then if you want to take it further, then you put a agent on top of that, and then you can create workflows with NAN and with Make, and then you automate even further. But before you even get to that level of understanding, I think you need to understand how does information flow in your own system, because people don't always think, okay, so when I get an email, I usually do this and I usually do that, and I put this, after I respond, I put in this folder, and after this it goes into this folder. Maybe it has to be sent to this other person for approval, blah, 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 right? Like, we're talking about step by step by step. But for agentic AI to be useful, for automation to be useful, you have to think of those processes. You have to think of those steps to build that process. It's those little things that it really helps to get your team up to speed in this AI readiness place. Another thing I would add here is have an AI champion. Like, let's just say you want your team to be, getting up to speed, but you're like, okay, everybody's for themselves. Go and do it, like Wild Wild West. Have a champion that is responsible to research what is the best tool out there, right? Like, how, let's see, there's a question that came up. How do you balance automation with keeping teams motivated? I actually want to hear a bit more of that, like elaborate on that. Pizza real estate. What do you mean by keeping teams motivated? Where does motivation fit in that automation? Because that's what I'm trying to understand. Where the question is.
Well, what I would take out of that is as you were just talking, one of the key things is having somebody buy in, meaning a champion. So that was one thing. Obviously, that's going to have somebody buy into it. The reason I think the question is going to be answered or asked is because of this question. So we'll come back to these.
But did you really have a strategy if you failed? Did you really have a strategy if you failed? Because it sounds to me like you just had a bunch of AI thrown at it without a true strategy.
Exactly the point. And so going back to pizza real estate here, thank you for the question. Great name, by the way. The keeping people motivated can be difficult at different things, especially if your team hasn't had this program that you're bringing in to automate a cycle. That's more work. That's more, you know what I mean? So the motivation can be a little bit challenging. So how would you set that up so that would be, yes.
Well, again, it goes back to what we said in the beginning. Remember when the premise, when we start, was like, if you if you're not careful and you're just throwing a bunch of tools and AI at the
Right.
problem, you end up with more work. That's that, because there's no clarity, there's no decision making, there's no strategy around why do we use this and for what reason and how is it helping us in the long term. If you have not had the ability to have those type of conversations and clarity, then you're going to end up with more work. I have seen this happen in real life. I was working with the team and they were working under SharePoint, and their SharePoint was kind of like their library of all the information that there was for the last 20 years they've been in business. But the amount of documents and files that they had over there, it was tremendous because they couldn't find things anymore. So they were trying to figure out how can we create some kind of an AI layer on top of SharePoint to be able to be our, ChatGPT, like go and find me this file for this event that we did in 2013, and now this client is back, but they want to reference something that they used for design during that one time in this location, right? Like that's relevant information that you can draw a lot of insight from if only you can find it, if only it's available to you. So we are working with different systems. Obviously, they needed a very custom solution because one, security reasons, privacy concerns. They had clients that specifically made it clear that they don't want AI in any part of their planning of their event. So then they had to be very careful which client do we bring under the umbrella of AI to make this system work, and which we might have to keep outside of that because it is within the contract, it is within the requirements not to use AI, right? So we applied some automation, we applied some AI on top of that. But during this automation part of like setting it up, because the thought process wasn't put in for step by step by step. And when we're talking about budgets and we're talking about approvals and we're talking about different systems that work together, like think about, you have an invoice that comes in and then you want an automation that automatically will inform the stakeholder, the bank, the, account manager, and payment needs to be, I don't know, it needs to be divided in five different deposits, all on a deadline. That's a lot of steps to that. It doesn't just happen. One little thing that was missed in that automation, and that they ended up with this particular framework running on autopilot and creating a bunch of disarray in their accounting system. So now they had to go back, shut it down, try to fix it where it went rogue. That's very, very prevalent in AI automations that are not fully thought out properly. And there's a lot of talk around, AI agents gone rogue for that reason alone, where you just, give it so much authority, but with that authority also there's a lot of risk that you have to be aware of. I'm on the fence with even my own agents that I have running on my behalf for different functions within the businesses that I run, because one of my biggest complaints I would say right now is that I need to be way more careful and review those agents work more often than like an automation that I can set up that once it's done well, it can run for a while before I have to go back to it to review it to make sure that it's still, it still makes sense to run it. Let's see, another question here.
Well, hold on. Before you do that, we're going to go back to this one. But what you just said is interesting because I told you my oldest son got me into AI and automation. He helped me set up the first couple of automations in Make, by the way. And what he did is he'd set them up and then he'd purposely leave something out and say, okay, now go find this and we'll go to the next step, which was a real son of a gun. It wasn't all that much fun, but it really taught me a lot about AI and it really helped a lot. I think what you were talking about, or what Kelly Grant here is talking about, you talked about earlier, in that you've got to set it up. Oh, my son, by the way, my point is that he says AI is like something you want to bounce off of somebody, like an associate. You're bouncing ideas and getting information off of. Automation is something that you want to set it up, and it's just going to do the same thing over and over and over and over again, exactly perfect. So there's a definite separation between when people,
with the assumption that
because
you
I used
did
to say AI and automation together, and it's not. They're
Yeah.
different.
Yeah, I mean, with the
So this
assumption that you did your automation properly. Again, I've seen cases in which if that wasn't
have
done
to.
right, you still end up with more work than you sign up for. But yeah, there's definitely a distinction between, and in my mind, the same way, what automation can do, what augmentation is, and also what agentic AI is. And all of that.
How are you using augmentation in this? How are you using augmentation in this? Just
Augmentation
describe
is
that.
where
What is that?
augmentation is the perfect example is when you use ChatGPT. You augment your output. You basically adding AI into the mix, but you are the decision factor. You will still be the decision factor, right? Whereas agentic AI is more of a, you give it the instruction, you give it the workflow, but then AI decides which direction is gonna go to accomplish the task you have given, right? And then automation is very much preset. Like you said, it's you set the rules, you set the flow, and then it goes and does it, assuming that you said that well.
Yeah, perfect. Just so you know, I can't believe we're already almost 55 minutes into the show. So it's gone really fast. But we still have a lot of questions. I just want to let you know that, because I know you've got to stop, that you'd like to get off a little bit after 15 minutes after or so. But just wanted to give you a heads up there. We're at almost 55 minutes now. So where should a business begin if their AI strategy already failed? I popped that up a second ago, but then I brought it back down because I wanted to fill in some of this that we're talking about now, because it can fail for different reasons, some of which you just described, right?
Yeah, I think if AI fails, it doesn't fail randomly. It's basically going to fail because it's asking questions of your processes that maybe you are avoiding to see. And it will ask them in a certain order. And I think this is where usually teams, they want to start. They just want to start with AI leverage. Fewer things that I need to do that are landing on me. But leverage is an outcome, is not a starting point. So what you need to have in order for AI not to fail is clarified inputs. The intelligence systems that we talk about, they only create leverage once the work underneath them has been clarified. And this doesn't just mean optimize, I mean clarified. What type of decisions do we have? What kind of inputs actually matter? What cannot move without consequences? Then you have to have leadership and redesign. That clarification doesn't come from tools, it comes from leadership. And then when the underlying judgment is, well, we'll figure out as we go, right? Like how humans do. But the system doesn't just do that. The system really needs to be clear about what the input is so the output can be this. It will make the uncertainty move faster, and that's not a good thing. Like it's kind of like you're amplifying chaos instead of clarity. And then the other thing that needs to be is where judgment and discernment exists, right? What is already settled? What can't be touched? What's protected? What can flex? What are some of the trade-offs? Those are the things that an AI system will amplify consistently. So if you have a broken system, guess what's going to happen once you apply AI to it? It will get broken faster and
it'll find all those breaks. It'll find all those breaks. Really,
exactly.
I mean, it'll like you said, find and then amplify. Yeah. That's kind of almost a good tool. I mean, if you don't go live with it, right? You run through a test.
I mean, it shows you, that, right? Yeah, it shows you the gaps. It shows you the flaws in your system, in your thinking, and in your processes. And that's a good thing. That could be a learning experiment. But like you said, just don't deploy it just yet. Learn from it, improve on it, and then go with second rendition or third or fourth. I'm in the process of also deploying an app right now that I'm working with my developers, and we've been going
You're
to
so
like
lazy. You're such a lazy person.
Here's the problem, Rod. Once you take advantage of AI at the capacity
Yeah.
that you can,
Just,
you
yeah.
have more work than you've ever imagined, because you're always going to think of
Yeah.
new ways to use AI. So that's kind of me. I'm like, I have, 20x my output, but at the same time, I feel like I'm still doing a lot because I have new ideas. I have new applications. I have new things that I want to do. So it's a bit like you
It's
have to
fascinating.
find, it's that cycle that you have to find at one point, like, okay, discipline. What's for me? What's for someone else? I don't have to do it all,
Yeah, it's fascinating
Olivia,
that
thank you.
and going back to what's
Thank
that?
you, Olivia, for the
Oh yeah,
comment.
solid
Olivia was
conversation.
saying
Lots
solid
of
conversation.
yeah. Thank you
Yeah.
very much, Olivia. And going back to what I brought up earlier, where somebody else had mentioned that you're not using your brain as much and so forth. We're actually, I've seen and experienced and heard conversations just like what you just said, that it's actually, and to me, it's actually increased my mental capabilities or capacities.
Mm-hmm.
Not just because it's doing what it's doing, but along the way that it's doing, I'm managing that and seeing things and tweet, and then coming up with ideas, and it's broadening our range of knowledge, because it's not new. It's just so able to grab information and organize it in such a quick detail.
Yeah.
And then you look at it, and what I like to do is I like to read it and then listen to it, both.
Yeah.
And then make decisions off of there. So Olivia here has got a great comment that is so true. It follows up right here. Powerful reminder that AI exposes leadership. We just talked about that.
Yeah.
It doesn't replace it, right? I mean, Anita got a great point here.
Yeah. I think a similar point that was made a little earlier, but basically on the same thought. It's very much comes down to, like you said, Rod, the capacity that you're gaining with the ability to no longer have to spend so much time on tasks that would eat your mental, your cognitive. This is where I'm actually, another thing that I'm passionate about is the cognitive load. What does that mean, right? Right now, we're very much inundated with a lot of information. There's a lot of, a lot of pressure to stay on top of all the technology that's all the AI tools, all the things.
Yeah.
And it's a lot. I 100% agree. It's a lot. Like, I wake up many times, 4 a.m. in the morning, and I spend the first 2-3 hours of the day just staying on top of the latest changes. And you're like, how did so much happen in just like since last night, in just 1 week?
Like 5 minutes.
How is it possible? It is possible. So staying on top of everything that's moving. And even then, I don't know everything. Even then, I'm still like, I hear new things from different people. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. Oh, that's kind of, I want to do more research on that. But the whole concept of now you having the capacity to think beyond the things that you used to spend your time on. I am 100% with you on that, Rod, because that has happened to me too. I don't think my thinking, I don't think my, my brain capacity has shrunk. If anything, has expanded into places and areas. I was just sharing, how, I have this app that I'm working with. I vibe coded the beginning of that app. The first version of that app was me vibe coding that little damn thing one Saturday in 6 hours, because I had this one idea. And now Claude gave me the capacity to be able to put this one idea into practice, where otherwise I would have never dreamed that I would hire a development team to build it, because I'm not a developer. I am an event producer. I produce events. I don't build apps. However, I saw the need for this one app to solve a problem within my workflow in event production. And I figured, hey, if nobody's building it, why not build it myself? In what universe would you just wake up one Saturday morning and decide to build it yourself?
Good point.
So I'm just saying,
100%.
yes, I did hit my limit at one point. I'm like, yes, I am not, a true coder. So I need someone of that education, which goes back to also all these fears about, people.
But you can also save money there, right? So it needed to be
I
coded
started
at a
with-
point, but
Yeah.
now it's less, right? Because you've set it up for that person.
Exactly.
Right?
I started with a prototype. This was a prototype. I used my capacity to build a prototype, and then I brought in a team that can actually build upon that foundation and take it farther than I can. Because again, I don't have that knowledge of coding at that depth level, which again, I just want to highlight something that somebody was like saying, well, where do coders and web developers and, those experts that we rely on for all these years, where will they go when AI takes over? I think there's still going to be need for human expertise. I would not trust just AI to build my app, because I know how it can go in those loops and hallucinations, because I've seen it in my own code.
Hallucination.
And I've been like struggling at one point with my code, because you would constantly just go back to try to redo something, but would only see the context window here. And then you would jump to the next context window instead of seeing the whole picture, instead of understanding the whole logic. So that's what I brought in, a team of people, of experts that have done this before, and they can understand how this flows and what it needs to be done. So there's always going to be need for human expertise. And if there's anything that I want to leave anyone with here today, is get really, really good at what you know that you know. And that's where the most value will exist.
They say that a lot of people are concerned about jobs changing or losing, or people
Roles
not
don't
being
change.
able to be employed. Yes. So what's happening now is exactly what you just talked about, in that AI writes code so much faster, and it's so much more advantageous because of that. But what you have now is you're going to have people like what you just described, the situation you just described, where those people are going to be in charge of, say, 5 AI systems, correcting and making sure and managing those AI agents or those AI systems. And so there is always going to be people, because it needs to be managed. It's like you said, it's more of a junior role, but it has amazing capabilities. But don't be fearful that your job is going away because you're a coder. Actually, you're going to be a manager now, right? And managing over this AI that's hopefully doing the right code, but they make mistakes. But let you some of the things you touched on.
Yeah, I want to answer really quick Dawn's question that's on the screen.
Yeah, that's what I was just going on to that. When I bring it up, and that's kind of why I want to set it up and then go on to it. What his question here is perfect. How do you measure real ROI from AI beyond cost savings? And some of it you just talked about. You can now give a coding company your app, but you've set up the platform or the base. So now that the coding company probably has a better start off to the job, and now you're not spending that setup that you're trying to explain what you're trying to get done.
Let me touch on that, Rodd, a little bit, because I think those are all great points. What I want to add to that is AI ROI from AI is not just measured by output volume or speed time. I think the first place you can look at is decision compression. Before AI, you need to measure and think about how long did it take a team to move from this place to decision to execution. After AI, decisions are happening much faster without increasing the rework and the escalation or the second guessing. And what that means, if speed goes up, right, then the reversal, the overrides, the cleanup work also go up. So our ROI can be negative even if productivity metrics look good. Now, the second measure, I think, is human load. AI should reduce that cognitive drag, not increase it. I pay very close attention to, when we talk about events, the meeting volume, like all the notification noise, the clarification loops that exist, the after hours work. When AI is well designed, that's where leaders see fewer just checking messages, fewer emergencies, and are more confident in the ownership that they give to their team. Now, when the opposite is true, right, like where AI is poorly introduced, that's when you have a lot of anxiety and a lot of people working longer and harder to babysit systems that they don't truly trust. Then there's also the quality under pressure. I think ROI shows up when something breaks. Now, the question is, do your teams recover faster? Do fewer people get pulled into this issue now that you have AI? Is accountability clear? And if you are able to use AI that delivers value, which makes failure to be more contained, then that's another point to measure, right? And I think that the next one is also like when think about judgment, how you can use AI for the good to make good leaders lead better. And that also highlights the bad leadership. That makes it more obvious. So I think ROI also exists where leaders can spend more time on coaching, on strategy, on being people's people versus just, having to go from meeting to meeting and handling all this predictable work that before they spent all their time on. So instead of having your leaders buried under ops and under approvals and all the things that, that operation really expects of them, having AI step in so that your leaders can manage the people, coach the people, mentor the people. So it's beyond just numbers. It's beyond just what AI can give you on paper, on a number. There's also the human sustainability factor. Can the organizations really showcase performance without burning out people? Somebody in the chat was talking about burnout. I'm not sure exactly where the question went, but I noticed
about teams and when implementing AI, how to stay away from burnout and
that's
this
huge.
new process.
Exactly, that's huge, because if you can delegate some of the tasks to automation or use augmentation or AI, agentic AI, where your team members don't have to work so many extra hours, where you can incorporate the 4-day week, right? And you give people capacity. In my personal example, right, talking about ROI, what is my real ROI of using AI? I'll tell you right now, I have the ability to work as many hours of the day I can or want. However, because of the usage of AI, I can put aside every single day 3 hours that go into my training. Bodybuilding takes time. Swimming and Ironman training takes time. Nutrition takes time. Family takes time. That's my biggest ROI. The fact that I can take care of myself, I can put myself first. I don't have to slave over a schedule that kind of keeps me, like locked in order to get things done. That to me is my biggest ROI, that I can do the things I'm passionate about beyond the things that, pay my mortgage.
That makes a lot of sense. I didn't even facilitate that one in my head as I was running through the ROI thought, but that at the end there, yes, there's a lot of, heck, ROI, I'll give you an ROI example. I used for years and years, I ran a machinery. By the way, we have like 533 people on. This is the biggest
Thank you,
audience
everyone.
of the week. Congrats.
Thank you for being present.
Yes, thank you all for being here.
Many good questions.
Okay,
Sorry we can't get to all of you.
Yeah, we let's do this. Let's try and get through everybody. But and then otherwise, if you have to go early, I'll go, because we only got like 6 minutes left, right?
Yeah, I have a few more.
I want to respect your needs.
However, there's ways in which we can connect, so we're gonna give them an opportunity to connect.
Yes, and one of those things is I want you to, in that private chat, put your contact information, because you do a lot of podcasts. You know how it goes. Somebody's going to come back and watch this show a minute after it's over or whatever, and they're going to say, "Oh, I wish I would have asked Anca this." And so if you put your contact, however you want people to contact you in the private chat, I'll put it into the actual chat so that people
Yeah.
have that access while they're watching the show. Okay.
I would say the best way to get a hold of me is definitely LinkedIn, because I share a lot of the AI thought leadership on LinkedIn. I post a lot. I have 5 different pages on LinkedIn, which are my personal, it's my podcast, my production side, my AI technology side, and also my fitness side. So all of those pages are from this one brain that likes to operate in buckets. So I put my thoughts in all those separate buckets just to keep myself organized and sane. Thank you for sharing that link.
Right
There's
there.
another
That's your link.
question, Rob.
That's your LinkedIn. Okay, good.
Thank you. There's another question that
sorry.
I saw for a second. Okay.
I want you, hold on. Wait. What role should not be not this one. Yeah, that one. That question. I'm really curious about that. In your opinion, what roles should not be automated, or use AI in aspects? Where should that stay only manual? And I can't think of anything personally.
Human empathy. Think about that. Would you want an
Human
AI
empathy
to be in charge of empathy, of being charge of your team's communications and that one-on-one relationship that we're forming? I hate it that so many onboarding companies these days use AI as the first point to interview people. And a lot of people are feeling like burned out from this experience that they're going through, where instead of talking to a human that will understand beyond what the resume says, like I'm just going to pick on this example, they would understand where you're coming from. Why is there a gap in your, in your career? Maybe because you had a mother that you had to take care of. Maybe you had a child that was sick. AI won't look at those things from the same point of view. It's not going to have the same level of empathy to understand, well, if you had a gap, it's because you actually were doing something that was, so important and yet didn't necessarily make it, to be a career move. That is one place, like, I don't think ever AI should be put in the place of, yes, there's AI therapist. Sure, sometimes I use ChatGPT as my, therapist from time to time, right? I'm like, I have
I
this
keep feeling like this.
I'm like arguing with my husband and I really need like a, some kind of response. And then, I'm like, this is what he said. This is what I want to say. Help me craft, like those arguments that are silly. Or I'm like, I don't know how to deal with this situation. Help me, walk me through this, right? That's not to say that I still don't have a real therapist that I can walk through that. All I'm saying is I would not trust AI at that level, where in this AI driven workplace, I see Jason dropped it in there. You forget empathy, you forget the reason why we connect with humans in the first place. That's one of my biggest one for me.
Wow. Yeah. And that's, as you said, Jason, what Jason says here, that those are skills that leaders and therapists and, the human AI can't be that. It's the human brain is, I think, so much more advanced than we ever have given it credit for. And I think we're just now starting to understand. Everybody's saying, ooh, wow, this shiny new toy AI. But then they start to look back and say, yeah, but it's not the brain.
Well, it's the soft skills that we're talking about, right? Like we're trained to to expand our hard skills. In a lot of the work out there, workplace, hard skills are the ones that are being quantified and they're being prized. But really the soft skills in this AI-driven workplace is what's going to matter. I think another thing that's important here is decision discipline. Because as a leader, you're going to have to make a lot of decisions and you're going to have to decide who owns what. Also within the AI ecosystem, where is AI allowed to interference? Where is AI integrated? Where does AI help? Where does it not? That's decision. And you have to be disciplined with how that goes. Another important thing, I think, it's again, it all goes to all those soft skills. Systems thinking. You have to be able to think in systems, to see how things work, how they flow, and where does the pressure accumulate, where do you need automation to maybe support that workflow, where do you want to relieve some of that pressure with maybe some agentic AI. And all of that does not just happen without someone leading, like going back to leadership, going back to understanding where does discernment and judgment under certainty fit in. And then we're talking about empathy and also emotional regulation, because AI is moving at such a speed, and it's putting all these expectations on a lot of people on the teams, and teams feel that, like they truly feel it. And if leaders cannot regulate themselves and their team members to understand what's urgent, what's not, where is this is just hype, we were talking about hype and confusion, where this is important, all of that has to come from leaders. It has to be driven by someone that understands how does it all fits in. And then we haven't even touched on ethics. We haven't touched on security. We haven't touched on privacy. That's a whole conversation for another time. But think about how important ethical clarity is, right? Like, where is sharing data with AI? What's off limits? What outcomes are totally unacceptable when decisions have to be made, right? Where are we going to say this is okay for AI to go to this boundaries? We're talking about boundaries up to this point, whereas from here on, this is a human responsibility loop, and there should be no AI in the picture, right? All of that is the type of decision making that will raise the bar on leadership, to be honest, because it's not just a matter of like being, really good at your job. Is really being really good at leading your people and being able to be clear, being able to showcase restraint and discipline, being able to showcase discernment, so that there is no ambiguity and there is no chaos. Really, at the end of the day, it would be chaos just because you have so much to manage, including your teams. You also have now AI to be managed, So I think I just answered that. How do you prevent AI from adding chaos?
I know that's what I was just saying. That's exactly kind of how you manage that, is by letting it expose what the weaknesses are or the strengths are, but on top of it, managing what it's allowed to participate in as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, great question.
And you also touched on this.
Engaging audience. Thank you for all those questions.
It is. It is. And you also talked about where, you know what? I want to keep you here. There's a couple more questions. I can handle them if you gotta go.
I have another call here soon.
Do you need to make a quick call, or I'm sorry, do you need to make a quick, what do you want to, you got
4 minutes.
You got 500 people
to wrap it up. I know.
Okay, 4 minutes. 4 minutes. Let's hit this 2 questions quick. I'll put up your thing, do a closing statement, and you can do that in 4 minutes. First, Jack, where does human judgment still matter most with AI? And I think you just talked about that, because it's not the human brain. We talked about
boundaries,
AI.
right? Boundary setting. We talk about accountability. We talk about the level of intent. All of those places, the human judgment or discernment will be so important, because AI expands the human capability, but it does not replace the human responsibility. And I think the moment leaders forget that, that's when you get systems that just move faster, but then the outcomes also get worse. And that's not what we want in the long term.
It's exactly the opposite. And then just to round everything out, we've already talked about this as well, but I'm assuming what Rochelle here is, I love that, Hemingway, my favorite writer. But what I think she's referring to here is that at some point, your leader is integrating AI. How do they stay being high performing when they're off doing this other thing as well? How can they manage? How can you manage that and then close it out from there? Okay.
I think we've said that, a few times now in so many words, and it comes down to designing systems and workflows that are clear. They're one of my favorite authors, Brené Brown. She says, "Clear is kind."
Yeah.
So
I like that.
systems that are clear, so people do not have to compensate because they don't understand what is happening. I think that's the first requirement. And same is true with AI. It cannot fix unclear goals. It cannot fix fuzzy ownership or competitive priorities, as we talked about. So that's where, like, if you want performance to be held high, you have to be explicit about what matters, about who decides, about what success looks like. And that's when it's all in place, AI will remove the friction and won't just accelerate more of the confusion that exists under the systems that are not clear. I think the second part is the constraint, like the discipline. We talk about discipline. High performance requires limits. Here's, as a high performer myself, I'll tell you from my experience, I have a limit. And to me, my limit is, where do I spend my time so I get enough sleep? I don't go to after parties. My limit is for me to be a high performer and put a lot of weight in the gym and be able to perform my workouts at the load that it needs to be. You're not going to see me after hours. I am in bed at 7:30 like an old person. I love my sleep. But those are the limits that really push me to be a high performer. It's more important to me to be able to have a really good workout in the morning than to be out at the bar, drinking. I also don't drink, for that matter, the same way. So leaders have to decide then, where does that fit within their team? Where are the limits? What are the boundaries? Because not everything has to happen. Not everything has to be automated. Not everything has to be an AI on top of it or some agentic AI. That is that constraint, the discipline, the decision that we talked about that needs to be disciplined. And then the containment, right? What happens if something breaks? Who is pulled in? What are the decisions, frameworks that are being used if something were to break? And more, there's news of AI breaking, right? And then if something breaks in the AI workflow, something gets exposed. And in most cases, it's somebody's information, it's somebody's, privacy is exposed. Those are important things, because if you're a brand that is caught in a storm like that, imagine how much we're going to have to put to clean that up, right? And then I think another important factor of this is the feedback. You have to be open to your team's feedback. You have to be open to AI's feedback. You have to be able to constantly be in this, echo chamber of, how is this working out for us? Where can we improve? And don't just move forward with whatever, the infrastructure created around those decisions are, without talking to the people, so that the people that you work with trust the system. Because if you're going to try to take AI, at your own speed, but the people are, behind you don't follow, you're going to end up with the burnout. You're going to end up with like the lack of ROI, that the AI didn't work for us strategy, that we.
Yeah. I remember that person asked in a number of questions ago about that exact thing. Yeah. Is that what you want to leave everybody with? Is there anything that we missed that we want to recover?
There's so much
I appreciate
more
you spending.
Say. Yeah,
we should. I was going to say we should keep in contact and maybe have a second show.
Let's do a recap. We'll do another time, but I think there's a lot to be said. I love thought leadership around AI that goes beyond just, what AI tool can I use? There's so many tools out there. I don't have to give you the map, because at one point I was actually sharing on my website all the latest AI tools, and then I have to give up at one point. I think it was September of 2023 or 24 when I
crazy.
gave up updating the website with all the latest AI tools, because they were like coming up so fast. So if you're interested in AI thought leadership, if you're interested in what's happening in the world, definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. My podcast, Events Demystified, right now is actually putting on the CEO edition season. So what that means, I'm only interviewing CEOs of large companies, and we're talking about everything, not just about AI, but we're talking about business. We're talking about strategy, challenges, the human behind the brand, like how did you overcome a failure? All of those conversations are being had on the Events Demystified podcast. And then if you care about my bodybuilding
Say
journey,
that name again. You went quick
Demystified.
on the podcast. What's the name?
Events Demystified.
Demystified. Yep.
Events Demystified is the podcast.
Yep.
Again, it operates in the event technology and event business world, but those conversations are valid for anyone running a business. I mean, if you run a business, most likely you find yourself in a pickle with asking the same questions. And then, that's awesome. I'm pretty easy to be fun, to be honest. Bodybuilding, I have my own channel for that. Yes, I have Instagram, I have YouTube for that. And that's where I kind of share my journey, where I am. Like right now, I'm actually training for a bodybuilding show and an Ironman, just to make things more interesting.
Oh, you're going to do Ironman.
Yes, and I'll tell you right off the bat, swimming is kicking my ass, because I did not grow up as a swimmer. Swimming for me was more of a like just you don't drown swimming, not performance swimming. So I have to retrain myself and
don't drown swimming.
A lot of bad habits that I didn't even know I had, but it was more of, like stay alive. Like if you're in a body of water, what do you say? Don't drown. But anyway, it was wonderful, Rodd, to have you. I'm going to have to jump off here.
Yes.
But what a wonderful audience you've got. Keep up the good work. You're doing excellent.
Oh, they are awesome. People are awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Let's stay in contact. I'll throw you in the green room and go do your stuff. I appreciate your time. Thank you. That was awesome. That was awesome. 500 people, man. All right. So there we are, man. That was a great show. Very interesting person and ability to go across multiple conversation links here. And like I said, we got her LinkedIn site here, but you heard the other socials and stuff that she does. This is exactly why these conversations, matter like this. That is exactly it right there, because AI isn't slowing down. It's but how we choose to use it, that's still up to us. What we talked about today wasn't about tools or trends. It was about leadership, right? I mean, it was well done. It was about discipline. It was about performance that actually holds when things get hard. And if there's one thing I hope you take away from this conversation, this is it. AI doesn't replace leadership. It exposes it. How you doing, B? Come on in. That's true in business. It's true in teams. We're just wrapping up right now. And it's true, sorry guys. And it's true in how we show up for each other. This is why we're grateful for the partners like the Mangum City Library and Leaf Lab, and for the work happening through Voices at the Table and the Regeneration School Project. Because access to knowledge, thoughtful learning, and human-centered leadership matter now more than ever. If today's conversation added value, here's how you can support what we're building here. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Rodd Duff 1939. So these conversations continue to reach people who need them. Okay. And then there's our Substack. Join on our Substack, where we go into deeper. We go into these conversations deeper. We do this writing 3 days a week with writing reflections and follow-up insights that don't fit into a single episode. If you're local or care about rebuilding community from the inside out, check out my weekly column in the Mangum Star. This platform exists for the great middle class, all of it, all of the great middle class. For people who want clarity instead of noise. We have way too much of that nowadays. And for leaders who understand that the future of work is still human. Anca, thank you for bringing honesty, depth, and experience into this conversation. And to everyone watching, thank you for being part of Insights and Straight Talk. We will see you next time. Stay for the outro video where I always do a little something, and then say hi to somebody today. Be curious, stay curious. All these things still matter, even in an AI conversation. And with that, I'm Rodd Duff. I'm your host, alongside producer Barbie, and I am out of here.
Before you leave, if you'd like to watch another one of the podcasts, click the first link in the description. We love having you here and we appreciate all your support.
And with that, producer Barbie and I are out. Love you guys. Be good.